In this video, I'm going to show you how I added this roofing to my shed in one day all by myself. I'll share with you the materials and tools I used, plus my strategy for roofing this style of roof, even with this steep of a slope.
I've never done any roofing before, so this was an interesting one to learn. It was a lot of work, but pretty straightforward once you know the basics. This also would have taken much longer without some of the tools that are pretty specific to roofing. Before anything else, the fascia board needs to go on. I found that the easiest way to do this was to clamp the board up, get it into position, and then screw it in. Fascia is basically just trim for the edge of the roof. It provides a little protection, but it's mostly a finishing trim to make it look better. I ended up replacing this first board since I found out it was lopsided once I got it up there. On the front, I decided to add the boards from the top instead of using the ladder in these wings. These strong clamps made this so much easier to do alone. From there, it was rinse and repeat. It was pretty quick work to do all four sides of the roof. The fascia boards do a good job of covering the structural lumber, and they look really good when painted. After the fascia boards are up, I added drip edging over the top of those. Drip edge is a metal flashing that keeps water from getting between any gaps in the wood. The bottom drip edge will go on first, and then the side drip edges will go on top of that. The drip edge on the top will go on after the shingles. The next layer is the tar paper that needs to get rolled out on top. I was able to pre-cut these sheets so I wouldn't have to cut it on the roof. Having them pre-cut made it a little easier to staple them down in the wind. This slab stapler was a great tool to use here. It was much quicker than using a regular staple gun. I laid them out, overlapping them by about 6 inches, slowly working my way to the top. The lines on the paper made it real easy to keep them straight. It was super windy this day, so having the slab stapler plus having the paper pre-cut made this way easier than it would have been, especially on this steep of a roof. This moved pretty fast, but I did have to go up and down the ladder a lot to get each row of paper. They have a little curl at the edges, but the shingles will be nailed down on top and get them flat. Let me know in the comments if there was something I should have done different here. After the tar paper was up, I could start shingling. These need a starter strip as the first row so they can have something to attach to. This might have been the most frustrating part for me. Attaching the starter row in the wind was definitely a pain. The starter row has an adhesive that sticks on, but it also needs to be nailed in place. After that, it was time to start laying shingles. These are architectural shingles that I bought from a big box store. I started with the first row and worked my way across. I was extra careful with the first row to keep it as straight as possible. Here we get to the real star of the show, the roofing nail gun. This was a necessity for me. Nailing each of these shingles up by hand would have been a nightmare. Plus, with the slope and these winds, I didn't want to spend any more time up here than I had to. The nail gun made it real easy to grab some shingles, nail them up, and keep moving, working my way up the roof. These shingles need to have the seams offset for each row. I didn't have an exact pattern here. I just cut the first shingle for each row a little shorter than the previous row. I did all the measuring on the roof and then cut the shingles on the ground. From here, I just continued hauling the shingles up and nailing them down. Over and over again. As I got higher up, I was able to do a couple rows at once so I didn't have to move around as much on this steep roof. These shingles were pretty heavy, so hauling them up here was a chore. This definitely took more rows of shingles than I imagined. Each row is like 6 inches of coverage, so it took almost 30 rows to cover this roof. As with many of my projects out here, this was a race against the sun. Just as the sun was setting, I got the last row of shingles up. After that, I put the drip edge on the top, and then I used some sealant to cover the nails I used to attach it. And that's it, that's the roof complete. It looks way better than I would have thought.
This roof took a little while, but it's pretty solid and gonna last a long time. This roof will definitely protect the shed from the elements.
All in all, this shed is close to getting complete. The last steps are to get a door built, adding trim and paint, and then installing a window. That's all coming up next. Thanks for watching.